back in what, third, fourth grade, something we did. You guys were forced to, I hope, to memorize times tables. No, no, really. If I have two numbers, say I got two times three. Well, two times everybody knows two times three is six, right? What do I call the numbers two and three? What are those called? Huh? Say it one more time. They could be coefficients, but if they're not with a variable, what do we call two numbers being multiplied together? It's kind of like one of those questions, are you a fifth grader thing, smarter? Because it's one of those things that you know, but you can't explain it. These are called factors, right? Did you? I thought I heard it. Okay, sorry, just. Okay, they're factors. If those are factors, what's the six called? Product, right? Product. Product. Okay, so I take a factor, multiply it by another factor, and I get the product. Okay. Well, that's exactly what we do when we use FOIL. Are you guys familiar with FOIL? No, some are, some aren't. Okay. When I have a binomial times a binomial, which means I have a quantity with two terms. It's called a binomial. So I have a binomial times a binomial. Instead of distributing each term throughout and then combining like terms, we have a process or a little I don't want to say trick, but it's called FOIL. Okay, where I have, let's see, FOIL, FOIL. And this little neat little strategy here tells me, well, using FOIL, take the first terms. So I got the 2x is the first term in this binomial, and I'm going to multiply it by the first term in this binomial. Okay, that's what I mean by first. 2x times x, 2x squared. Then the O stands for outer. So I'm going to take the outer terms and multiply them together. I got the 2x times the negative 4, which gives me negative 8x. It's my outer term. The outer terms, 2x times negative 4. And then I'm going to do the inner terms. I'm going to take the inner term positive 3, going to multiply it by the inner term x to get positive 3x. And then the L stands for last. So the last term, I'm going to take the positive 3, which is the last term in this binomial, multiply it by the last term in this binomial. So positive 3 times negative 4, negative 12. Okay, when I do that, when I use this FOIL, I will always have two terms to combine. In this case, the x to the first terms. I always have to combine those. In this case, I'm actually going to combine a negative and a positive, and my answer is 2x squared, negative 8x plus 3x, negative 5x, minus 12. So there's my product. I took this binomial factor times this binomial factor, and I got the product 2x squared minus 5x minus 12. So we're using distribution. It's just we're doing it in an organized way called FOIL. Should we do another one? Let's do this one that they have set up. So first, I'm going to take the x times x to get me x squared. The outer, this outer term in the first binomial times the outer term in the second binomial, x times 1 is positive 1x. The inner, positive 3 times the positive 1x, positive 3x. And then the last, positive 3 times positive 1 gives me positive 3. I always have the x to the first terms to combine. So I get x squared plus 4x plus 3. Okay? Now, what's really important in algebra is actually taking our product and getting the factors. So we're going to take our product here and we're going to come up with the factors. Now, this is going to be harder because to get the product, we multiplied. To get the factors, we have to undo multiplication or we're going to end up dividing. And it's always harder to divide, right, than it is to multiply. That's why factoring is always harder for students. Okay. Guys ready for this? Now, back in Algebra 1, they usually show you, they give you a strategy called the diamond method or Xbox, I heard it called. It's just, and you do like 50 to 100 of those problems and then you learn how to do it, right? Well, we're going to try to do this because we're in big kid student Algebra 2. We're going to try to do this in our heads. Now, the first thing we have to look for, in fact, even to this day, I make this mistake. Even to this day, I make this mistake. Always factor out the common monomial first. In other words, factor out any common multiples. And we kind of did this already when we were isolating the variables. Remember that? We called it undistributing, if you remember. It wasn't our favorite thing to do, but that's why I had you guys do that um, a month ago. It's because it comes in real handy here. Now, again, whenever we go to factor anything, always look for those common multiples first. And I'm guilty of it to this day. And I'll be halfway through a problem. I'm like, shoot, there's common multiples in there. It makes things really difficult sometimes. Okay, so let's undistribute here. Number one, I'm looking at the x squared and the 7x, each one of those terms. What's common in both of those terms? X, right? So I'm going to take out the x. Remember, we put in the parentheses. and we're actually dividing those out. We're taking the x squared, we're dividing it by x or x to the first. And since we did properties of exponents, what, yesterday or the day before, we know that we're going to take 2 minus 1 or x to the first, right? Then we're going to take our 7x and we're going to divide it by x. Well, those x's cancel and I'm just left with 7. So there's my two factors, right? Here's my product. This polynomial, or quadratic, because it's a squared, is called a quadratic. And here's my factor of x, and I'm multiplying it by another factor of x plus 7. Hence the name factoring. Pretty easy, right? Piece of cake. You guys got this. I don't even need to lecture anymore. Yeah. I wish it was that easy because my job would be very easy at that point. Okay, so the next one. I'm looking at the 8x and the 12, right? Now, there's no x's I can take out. However, looking at the numbers, what can I take out of both the 8 and the 12? Good. So I have 8x divided by 4. So I'm taking 8x dividing by 4. 8 divided by 4 is 2. Don't forget that x. Then I'm taking the 12, dividing that by 4, gives me the 3. So there's my two factors, right? Factor 4 and the factor quantity 2x plus 3. Now, sometimes you can take out both an x, because I got an x in both terms here, and look at the numbers. What else can I take out of the numbers? 2, right? So 2x squared divided by 2x is x. 12x, well, let's look at the numbers. 12 divided by 2 is 6, and the x is canceled, so there's my factors. Questions? We good? All right. Then, as things progress, right, because we don't leave things so simple in mathematics, we always scaffold. The next harder situation we get into is when we have a quadratic who where we don't have a coefficient in front of the x squared. And actually, we do have a coefficient there, but it's the number 1, right? So we don't normally put it there. For the ease of factoring, we'll just say no coefficient in front of the x squared term. So this would be our next level that's harder. So we're going to have to find our factors, right? Here's our factors. In fact, I'll put our factors in all 3 problems that we're going to do. And remember, that first term, the only way we can get x squared, right, in the product, the only way we can get x squared is if we take x times x. So that first term has to be x times x in all of these because there's no coefficient in front of the x squared. So it's always going to be x times x. Now, instead of that diamond method thing, we're going to actually try to do some of this in our head, or a lot of it in our head. So what I'm going to do is look at the factors of positive 4. So I have positive 1 times positive 4, or positive 2 times positive 2. Now remember, we're going to combine those x to the first terms, those inner outers. When I use these factors, that's what's going to give me the inner outer. So I'm going to be combining these. In other words, I'm going to add these together, right? And I'm looking for that coefficient of positive 5. Remember, this is in standard form of a quadratic equation. Y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So I'm looking for that b, that coefficient. A lot of times you'll hear me use b, c, and a. Now you know what they refer to. It's just sometimes it's habitual for me to use the a, b, and c. I'll try to be more specific with these for a while. But I'm looking for that positive 5 because we're going to combine those two middle terms. Well, looking at the factors of 4, if I add these together, well, here I get my 5, here I get my 4. So I'm going to use the factors 1 and 4. Now here's my 1 and my 4. They're both positive. So there's my factors for that trinomial. Now you could always check yourselves by using that inner 1 times x is positive 1x, and the outer 1x times 4 is positive 4x. Combine those together, I get my 5x, which is my middle term. You can use these arches to help you out if you're questionable on your answer. Makes sense? Are you guys falling asleep yet? I am. I'm almost done. I'm losing my voice here, so I'm trying to. I know I'm going a little slow, so just bear with me. Um, okay, so I got my x, my x times x for the x squared. I'm looking at my negative 40, so in my head, or even if I have to jot it down here, the factors of 40, 1 times 40, 2 times 20, see, 3, 4 times 10, and 5 times 8, right? Factors of 40. Now, I notice it's a negative 40. So one of the factors is going to have to be negative. And I'm going to want the bigger factor to be negative because when I combine them, I want to end up with a negative number, negative 3 in this case. So my larger factors are going to be negative. Bless you. And then let's see which ones combine to a negative 3. 1 minus 40, well, that's going to be way big. 2 minus 20 is negative 18. 4 minus 10 is negative 6. Getting close. 5 minus 8 is negative 3. So there's my factors. Positive 5 and minus 8. Check them. Use the arches. Let's see. Positive 5x for the inner. Negative 8x for the outer. Combine them, I get negative 3x. Checks. And the last one, number 6, factors of 12, 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. Now, notice they're multiplied to a positive number, but they're going to have to add up to a negative. So both of my factors are going to be negative because a negative times a negative equals a positive. So they're both going to have to be negative here because when I add them together, they have to be negative 8. And just looking at these, negative 2 plus negative 6, negative 8. So there's my factors. -2, -6. And I'm going to stop here for now. And next week we'll do the really fun factoring stuff, coefficients of x squared other than 1. Any questions on this, guys?